My name is Isis Rodriguez. The title of my show is Spiritual Manifestations in the Feminine. The themes that I'm exploring in this exhibition have to do with battling shame. Originally, I am from Los Angeles. I was born in Los Angeles, and then I spent some time in Kansas because my father was in the military. I got transferred over there. And then I went to the University of Kansas and got my degree in painting. And then I got accepted to the San Francisco Art Institute. As a child growing up, I was raised Catholic. And my first introduction to art was walking into a church and just seeing beautiful stained glass windows that represented the Stations of the Cross, sculptures of the archetypes from the Bible, Jesus, Mary, the Guadalupe. As I developed myself as an artist, I realized that I was very attracted to storytelling, and that growing up Catholic kind of gave me a little edge. I could read a painting. I knew what certain objects meant. And so when I started to become an artist, I began using objects as a way to tell a story. And I realized that we needed a new spiritual lexicon for feminism, and there's very little of that because so many feminists really see religion, especially Christianity, as a very patriarchal institution that's oppressing us. So I'm like, wait a minute, why don't we just create something that we would like to see? And how do we move forward with evolving as spiritual beings without having to deal with this kind of so-called oppression, you know? I was a student at the San Francisco Art Institute, and I was investigating sex-positive feminism. And I thought the cartoon was a new figurative. You know, it was a very minimalist portrayal of something realistic, but very simplified. So when I did my investigation, I went into some of the strip clubs to find out whether those women thought that work was empowering or exploitive. That kind of duality gave me the power to create a new body of work when I was young and use the cartoon as an editorial tool the way the newspapers do about politicians. So I developed all these archetypes because I saw a lot of types in the clubs, women creating fantastical types for men. And I thought it'd be an excellent way to start talking about the mythology of that world. And that was kind of my springboard. After that show came out, I was fairly happy with it. But for me, the cartoon became problematic. It became superficial. It didn't have the power that I wanted to really be taken a little more seriously in art, and for the ideas that I was bubbling around in my head about mythology, contemporary mythology. It just didn't have the power to carry it. So I began this body of work in 2007 at an artist residency in Oaxaca, and I wanted to take the idea of the Zapatista mask, which is a symbol of protest, and put it over a woman's body, a woman's face. And then the idea of putting lingerie and creating this new, what I call a metatype, that is being self-referential to myself, using myself as a way of talking about my own type of shame that I've suffered throughout the years, and creating an entire mythology about that. And it took me about 10 years to really create enough body of work where I felt like I could tell the story. Sex-positive feminism was a term that I studied in the 90s. I had this art class called Women in Art. I had classes like Art for Social Responsibility. So I was a little confused by it at first because I was thinking to myself, well, I don't know very many feminists that use their bodies as a way to discuss issues that are facing women today, you know. I was always taught to use your head, your mind, all that. But then when I began to understand that as an artist, the role of the artist is to use your your palette, your brushes, the colors, the canvas, everything to present ideas. And I got into a lot of mythology and things like that. I was like, ooh, I think I would like to create this archetype of a woman who is dealing with a lot of issues that she just wants to, at some point, let it go. Like, I knew it was going to have to be spiritual at some place, but I had to present a woman that was kind of fierce, that was saying no. The idea of lingerie for me was like intimate armor. To me, she represented like the perfect, like the poster child for a sex-positive feminist. So I took the masked woman, I divided her into 3 parts. One is called a captain, and that suit she wears is captain, and it has medals on it that represents her achievements. But I think in order to be able to evolve, you have to have the courage to do it. And so I really liked having a metatype that represented that part of myself. And so military outfits kind of are part of this idea of, again, with the Zapatista mask, about protest, going into battle, coming out of battle, being ready for battle. So when I had this masked woman archetype, I wanted to create a masculine archetype that can represent maybe the ideal man, a kind of masculine man that I could find that's heroic. And I noticed the Huichols, they wear this hat that has feathers and they have these little beads in the front and they have a certain way of healing. And that was an example that had inspired me. So I wanted to create a version of that, but more like a Vietnam vet, a veteran who's seen a lot of trauma. And he wears a helmet, and the branches aren't about camouflaging him, they're about healing people. So I have perul branches in his helmet, and I have laurel, which was the plant that was used for the Romans for victory, for winning a sport or something like that. Give him a red cape, kind of like a Superman cape with the 4 direction pins, and he has a beautiful little salmario, to heal, with this pack of Xolos Quinkles, to try to draw in certain indigenous values or ancient beliefs about dogs being guides into the afterlife. So my goal really was to create a story where this masked woman falls in love with the shaman, falls in love with the idea of healing, and where she wants to go to a complete transformation, where there's a death of herself that happens that no longer serves her. When I first read Gloria Anzaldúa, I immediately, that word when she used it, Nepantla, it just automatically gave me a vision. And I knew that at some point in my career as an artist that I would create Nepantla. And so by creating archetypes in the way of portraiture, scene paintings, even still lifes, that I'm trying to create that world of Nepantla. And for me, it's a darkness, it's a dark place. And the darkness isn't necessarily a negative thing. It's just symbolic of evening, the nighttime. When we close our eyes, it's dark. When we're going into deep meditation or deep thinking, we see darkness, and it's a very calming kind of place. We're out of that, we're able to cleanse out kind of the nonsense in our head, the mind, and out of doing that, then these beautiful images emerge out of that darkness like a dream, which point you in certain directions where you can now transform and transcend yourself in and out of that situation to make right choices in your life.